I'm sorry. Approval of minutes, September 15th. They were sent out. Any additions or corrections? Motion to approve. Thank you, Kathy. Second, Mr. Riley. Officially, any additions, corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? So ordered. Public comment. We have some of the public here. Would you guys, gentlemen, like to comment? If not, okay. New business, IPOC and tips. Tom has news for us. Tom, we're ready for you. Okay. In anticipation of this technical glitch, Tom sent me an email indicating the two things he wanted to talk about. One was the IPOC committee is tweaking their asset allocation, lowering the equity portion and raising the debt portion, and adding tips as an investment. That quote tweak unquote is not something that requires Board of Finance approval. So that is for us to know, and we trust their judgment.
That is just, if I'm not mistaken, just for the reserve portfolio.
This is just for the reserve
Reserve.
portfolio, and IPOC is recommending this.
It's just for the town reserve portfolio, not for the pension assets.
That's correct, John, and IPOC is making this recommendation based upon the Fed cutting rates to kind of get ahead of it.
And that, Tom's other comment deals with the Energy Task Force, and we'll keep you all in suspense about that until we get to the Energy Task Force portion. Reserve fund analysis. Dan, do you have something for us?
So, once a year we put this together, and this is just the basis as to why we have this reserve portfolio. And the state statute is very clear that it could be for non-recurring capital, and it can't be 31% more in equities. So these are our non-recurring capital accounts, which shows if we take them all at 90%, which is the town strategy, it's $11,047,585. Currently in the reserve portfolio at market value, it's about $12,040,000. So where we are right now is kind of where we are going to be. We can't add any more into this portfolio based upon our analysis here. So we'll look at it and keep looking at it as we keep putting into these reserve portfolios and what we spend on it. But right now we're pretty well funded where we have to be.
The statutes provide for this kind of thing if you do it a certain way, but it limits the things for which we can put money into the fund. It would be nice to put more money into the fund because there's a nice delta from the STIF on average over time, but we are maxed out on the definitions of the things for which we are going to spend money that we can put in this fund. There is one thing, I guess, Dan, we have some control, talk about it for a minute, I guess, is down at the very bottom line, you'll see investable at 90%. The value of the year-end money that we would have in the fund at the end of '06, what is it, 13,971,000. And then you'll see investable at 90%. When the Board of Finance set this up, and all these things, Steve, Board of Finance ruled are subject to change all the time, we decided that we would leave 10% uninvested in the fund, ready cash at the town hall, so we could immediately write a check if we followed all the proper procedures. So we have not invested, what is the difference? 13.9 versus 12.5, $1,000,004. That's in STIF earning 4%.
About 4.25.
And the reserve fund earning 5%. And we can have an open conversation if we want to invest that extra $1 million. What, $1,400,000 at 1% is, what, $14,000 a year?
Yeah.
We can do away with that little cash cushion. We certainly don't have to decide it tonight.
Just a comment. I
John,
think-
you want to talk into your thing, please?
I think that where we are now is good. If we want to take the risk of using some of that money that is in STIF that we know is liquid all the time, I think it is better off done when the yield curve gives you a reasonable spread between what STIF is paying and what we're projected to earn on this fund, because you are raising, in essence, the risk profile a little bit on that $1 million, or that 10%.
So, off the top of your head, and we're not to decide this tonight, we'll just think about it for a few minutes. What is the extra yield you think that's worth the greater risk? More than 1%, more than 2% difference between the two? You haven't thought about it, I know, but
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see it be at least 1 or 1.5%, or maybe, I would rather even have 2%, okay, on that small portion. Because if we need money and all of a sudden the Fed makes a significant cut, okay, in rates, we will at least, be a little, I really would like to see 2% or so of that at least kept in STIF, so it's always available to Dan.
we'll talk about this later. We're going to ask Dan for his opinion at some point, having thought it through, the liquidity and the risk profile, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I think to John's point, we don't want to risk, a large percentage of this portfolio. However, Tom just made a good point. As interest rates go down, STIF rates goes down with it. So,
Yeah.
so that's why we're trying to protect that. So you're going to see our STIF rate slowly going down based upon interest rate cuts. And if the speculation is they're going to cut a quarter in January, we'll probably see STIF go down another quarter.
And the intent, I would assume, of IPOC and our money manager is the projections are at this point, given what's happening with the Fed and unemployment numbers and so forth and so on, and also considering the consistent input from the King about cutting interest rates, okay? I think that's a good idea, because I think what's going to happen, and what they did is they also, I understand, tweaked, from what I read, they tweaked the structure, and Tom said part of it is to begin to extend some of the short-term money into intermediate maturities to lock in that type of a rate for a longer period of time. Because if you're all on the short end and all of a sudden rates take plummet, then we lose significantly.
Yeah, in, was it 2020, I think STIF rates was 0.15.
Yeah.
And we carried that for a year.
And we were getting, what, 1.5%,
Yeah,
10 times
yeah.
what we were getting on STIF. We've been through the analysis that we want to continue to do this. It's proved, I think, every year without exception, but certainly on average over the long term, very beneficial. That 1% difference between 4 and 5, between STIF and what we're doing, 1% of $13 million is $130,000. Right. So that's $500,000. So that we're going to continue to do it. I'm going to let Dan and Tom think about that extra 10%. If they're going longer on the bonds in the debt portfolio, and when the STIF rate goes down, when they lower interest rates, will be captured into higher rates on the bond portfolio in the IPOC fund. So moving that money into the IPOC fund would be a net advantage to the town. Someone ought to do some math about that. And maybe at one of our next two meetings, we can figure out if it's worth doing.
Yep.
Okay? Any other comments or thoughts? Steve?
Just a quick question, because I don't know out of curiosity. I believe the state statute says at least 50% of what's invested has to be government-backed obligations.
Yes.
Do you know what level?
Yes? Yeah?
Are we at 50, more than 50,
We are close to 90.
90?
in-
We are 10% equities, 90% government-backed.
They're all, that 90
So,
is all
yeah,
government.
we are way within the rules. Okay. Next on the agenda, if there are no other questions or comments? Okay. Next on the agenda, First Selectman's report, he's not here. I don't believe he hasn't contacted me about anything he needs to pay attention to.
No, we've been pretty quiet.
Okay. Finance Director's report, purchasing policy.
We just finished the purchasing policy. It was approved at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. I sent a copy out to everyone with the packet, so if anyone had a chance to review it. The major change really in the report was we added a section for emergency operations. If the Board of Selectmen declares an emergency, how we go about purchasing and how that's reported to the various boards. When we went through the last storm, we were following the guidelines, which kind of tied the hands of, Public Works and other departments to get things done right away when they had to be done. So we added a section that just raising the limits a little bit on the procurement during an emergency, but that gets reported to the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen at their next meeting.
Dan, just a question. I recall that some time ago regarding the old policy, that you were concerned about a technical thing that allowed someone to, in other words, jockey bids, let me put it that way. Has that been dealt with in the new one?
We didn't deal with it directly in the new one, John, but we did speak with the various departments, and we're doing much better not allowing that to happen
Okay,
anymore.
thank you.
There is a statement in the policy that you can't use the same bidder 3 times. So you do have to go out and change,
Okay.
so it's in there.
Okay. Questions or thoughts of Dan?
I was just wondering, does this put more of the purchasing on you and your department?
No,
Like
no, what it does
supplies?
is, what we have now, Kim, is the department heads do the purchasing unless they don't have access to various lines in the budget, then my department will do it. But what we do now is when a purchase order is entered into our accounting system or NetSuite, it goes directly to my department. Someone in my department reviews it just to make sure there's no things that are missing. And it's not an approval process per se. It's if there's supposed to be attachments. If the state bid's supposed to be attached, we need to have it attached. So we'll send it back to the department and say, you need to add these particular things, and then they'll go back to them, then they'll resubmit it, and then it'll get flow through the usual approval process between department head, then myself, and then Jeff.
So it doesn't add any additional man hours to your department?
It
Okay.
does not, no.
Excellent.
Hopefully not. The reason I'm sure one of the reasons Dan does that is he's the compliance officer for compliance with the purchasing policy, and our internal audit firm periodically does sample testing of all the documents, and if the documents aren't proper, well, that's not right. And by this device, we're sure up front that all the documents going in are going to be right.
I know I had to work with Dan in getting some things purchased. I know how good he is at applying the process. Thank you.
For the benefit of the taxpayers. Okay, any further questions, comments? If not, budget season,
So
Dan?
we are starting the budget season. We're building out the templates now. I'll send out the dates at the end of November, so everyone will know we do a week in February, which is the Board of Selectmen, but the Board of Finance members are invited and usually come and participate in that meeting. And then the Board of Finance gets to have their meeting in March.
Can you remind us when budget requests are due with the first selectman?
We send our, we're gonna send our templates out next Monday to all the department heads. They have to have them back to us by December 1st. And then December 1st to the 31st, Jeff and I meet with all the department heads just to go over their budgets. Jeff has to release it to the Board of Selectmen by February 15th, but we usually always end up releasing it around February 1st, and I don't anticipate there being a change this year. So that's the way it looks right now.
When do you anticipate the Board of Selectmen will establish their calendar for when they're going to meet publicly with department heads?
We will have that set probably December 15th. Depending upon last year, we did a different model. We had every department head come, and I think that worked really well, even though there probably wasn't a lot of questions asked of some of our department heads, but I think that worked really well for everyone to see the department heads and see how great they are and let them present their own budget.
Any questions about the budget process at this point? Okay. Next, Dan.
And speaking of the budget process, we got the ADM from the region, and it shifted back to Southbury this year. It looks like Southbury is going to get an additional hit of $1.3 million, which is about 0.4 of a mil in this budget cycle.
And that's just from the current budget, that's
Just from
nothing
the
to do with
current budget,
whatever is
that's
gonna
not
be.
counting what we have for
for
next
next
year.
year.
I base it off of last year, and, we don't know where we're gonna end up this year with anyone until we start seeing budgets come back.
Okay. Budget review, financial statements. This is a consent agenda presentation. Is there anyone who would like to remove anything from the consent agenda for discussion?
How does everything look? Anything unexpected?
No, we actually are looking really good this year. I mean, if you look in comparison to last year, revenues to expenditures wise, we're trending a little bit ahead of where we were last year. And then we took a little dip at the end of last year because of the storm, but it looks like, we're gonna be trending ahead. Our online permitting, or our permits are still doing really well. Our stiff rate, even with the cut, we've kind of anticipated that in our budget, so we're ahead of that right now. So revenue-wise, we're doing really well. Expenditures, we're trending a little bit higher than last year, but we're also offsetting that with our revenue increases, so I think we're in good shape.
Okay. Any other unanticipated expenses that we should know about?
There's nothing right now. We're pretty much on track with everything that we had budgeted last year, including even most of our vehicles. Infrastructure-wise, the bridge by Oldfield is on schedule, and it's within what we budgeted. We are gonna start construction on 2 bridges on off Old Waterbury Road, Munn Road, and shoot, I forget the other name, but back there, Munn Road, and they're gonna be 50% state funding. So we're working that out right now. And other than that, our library, we came in right at what we anticipated, and so we're in pretty good shape. The tennis courts over at Community House, we had put a budget in there of roughly about $1 million based upon what the region had put in, and it looks like that's gonna be about $380,000 to get those done. Solely because our site in sports was able to utilize the base and crush off the old tennis courts as a base, and that saved us a considerable amount of money.
That's awesome. And the FEMA, we still have FEMA money that we need to submit?
We have one project that I have a call with FEMA tomorrow that we're trying to see, because we are taking some state funding on a project. It's one of the bridges that we're working off of Waterbury Road.
Yeah.
And in talking to our FEMA rep from the state of Connecticut, they had mentioned to me that if we list it as an improved project, we might be able to get both funding. But if FEMA doesn't agree, we'll take the state funding, because it's 5 times what the FEMA funding is.
Thank you.
Dan, just one question, on budget and expenditures like that. I saw in a paper somewhere that there is a plan coming down a road to widen the bridge going into Heritage Village, okay? have we been reserving for that? Are we gonna look for a grant for that? Where is the funding gonna come from?
What we got, John, with that, and it goes back, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, we applied for a federal bridge program grant, and we got 100% funding for that. So
Super.
the federal government's gonna pay 100% to make that, and they'll only reimburse us if it is a 2-lane bridge.
Okay,
So we can't keep it a 1-lane bridge and get funding, and that grant is a $10 million grant.
and that should cover the cost.
That'll cover the cost. Now, we have upfront, but it's a reimbursement program, so as we pay it out, we'll get reimbursed, and it doesn't get reimbursed.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll acknowledge receipt of the treasury report. Transfers?
There were no transfers.
No transfers early in the year. Future business.
We have in November, just so everyone's aware, they usually come in October, but because Tom was traveling, we moved it to November. Jen from Milliman comes in and goes over the full analysis of the pension fund and what our expectations are for next year and our deposits. So she'll be here in our November meeting. So if anyone has any questions, we'll try and get the report to you guys before the meeting. We usually get it a week before, so hopefully I'll get it before that so you can have a chance to review it and put together whatever questions you might have of Jen. If anyone
Questions or
is
thoughts? Wait till next month.
We just released our full financial for fiscal year 2025. It's on the website. We published it today. We're just waiting on the federal government changed their guidelines, so the only thing that's not up is the federal single state audit, but the state and the town audit's up there for 2025.
And we disclosed that we didn't follow the charter to the people running the audit, right?
We did.
Okay.
Okay, reports from liaison. Tom, IPOC. I gave you the IPOC one. I forgot that we were going to get here eventually. So we have Tom's report. Board of Education, Janet?
The region is considering the potential construction of a new school. 3 options were reviewed at the Board of Ed meeting on September 29th. No decision made. Secondly, I'm sure you saw in the newspaper, Superintendent Smith has received a salary increase of 1.85% at his recent contract review, bringing his salary to $256,000 a year, plus benefits.
Thank you. Insurance Working Group, no report, John. We haven't met. Nothing to report. Roads and Bridges. Jack is on a ship in the Aegean Sea, so we won't be hearing anything from Jack. Dan, is there anything?
No, the only thing we have, like I said, are the 2 projects that are coming up that I think we've issued the purchase order for the engineering firm. We went out to bid and SLR was the winning bid, so they're gonna be started on there very soon. The 1-lane bridge, the bridge next to the library, the Oldfield Bridge, I believe, is still on schedule to be the end of this month.
How about River Road? What's going on with that? The
With-
temporary repairs were put in place last July.
I'm sorry, Kim, I couldn't
River
hear you.
Road, sorry, River Road. What's going on with River Road? What's its status?
I guess the remediation that was done on River Road, it cost us about $600,000. And I think with River Road, and I could be wrong, but I think we're gonna look at it as a sectional, each section to do it. But that's probably a better question for Jeff.
Yeah, so the Road and Bridge Study Committee hasn't met all year this year. And I was wondering, is there a plan to meet this year?
There is, unfortunately, 2 members of the road committee passed away. So we're looking for members. So there is a plan to meet, we just don't have members. I think there's 2 members still that are there, but we don't have enough for a quorum.
Thank you. I'm sorry to hear that.
Okay, RUPAC. RUPAC has not met, but our chairman has moved to New Hampshire. The first selectman has been notified, so he will be calling a meeting and replacing Gary. Yeah, he's in New Hampshire, left town. And whatever, I can't remember what constituency he represented, but that constituency will probably provide a recommended replacement to the Board of Selectmen for RUPAC. but there is nothing on their agenda that I know of, so there is time to take care of that, his replacement. And the Energy Task Force, Tom, can you, I guess I'm assuming you can hear us, but can you try to say something to see if you can give this report, or I'll have to do it if you can't? I am sorry you're not muted, Tom, but we can't hear you if you're trying to say something. So I will report what you sent me. As far as the solar project is concerned, the auction, is it an auction? The auction is happening in 3 weeks from now, and we will know whether or not we win in that auction the right to have a project in 3 weeks. So we will have something to report then at our next meeting. Wow. That's it.
That's it.
Does anyone have anything else that needs to be brought up tonight? We can add it to the agenda. Here, Kim?
Did we talk about the ARPA funds?
We did not.
Okay.
It is in the report I gave over AdCam. They're all still listed in there. Now, I had heard some talk from Park and Rec that they were talking about maybe making some changes, but I haven't heard anything about that yet, so.
Okay, well, they officially voted not to go forward with the splash pad
Okay,
back in August.
okay.
And so I was wondering what the process is going to be from here on, whether or not we're going to go straight with pickleball courts for the rest of that money, or whether or not ARPA Task Force is going to meet and make another recommendation, or leave it up to the Board of Selectmen.
We would ask the Park and Rec Commission to make a recommendation to the ARPA Task Force, and then that recommendation will go to the Board of Selectmen.
Can you remind us how much money is,
It's
Unspoken for?
$186,000.
how much?
$186,000
186?
for the splash pad. Let me just confirm that, John, get you the exact number.
And how much is available in the ARPA?
So right now, in the ARPA funds, we have 3 projects that are still not completely spent. We have $183,229 left in the splash pad. We have $12,289 for cameras, security cameras, and $7,267 for a feasibility study on town properties.
Are the last 2 projects finished?
The security cameras are not finished yet. I believe the feasibility study is, but I'll confirm that with Jeff, but I believe it is.
At our next meeting, that'd be good?
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you.
One thing I would love, and Kim, this is probably something that you had talked about, we're beginning the process of writing the fiscal policies for the town. So any help anyone on this board can provide would be greatly appreciated.
That would be amazing. Thank you. I'd love to help out.
All right, we are done with the agenda. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Steve. Second, Kathy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? We are adjourned, 7:30. Wow.
Record.
It's a record, yeah. It's Monday Night Football.